If I told you there are companies whose entire business is cleaning shopping carts, would you believe me? Not selling them, not manufacturing them, not repairing them, just cleaning them. At first, I didn't believe it either, because when you think about profitable businesses, you probably imagine things like restaurants, construction companies, software startups, or maybe a car wash. Cleaning shopping carts doesn't exactly sound like the kind of business that could make serious money. But then I started digging, and what I found genuinely surprised me. Some of these companies don't work for just one supermarket, they service dozens. Some even have fleets of trucks driving from store to store every single day. That immediately raised a question. If supermarkets are willing to pay someone just to clean shopping carts, how much money are they actually paying? And more importantly, could this really be a business someone could start? Or is it one of those ideas that sounds good until you look at the numbers? So that's exactly what I decided to find out. I wanted to understand everything. Who hires these companies? How much do they charge? How expensive is the equipment? What does it cost to get started? How much profit is actually left after all the expenses? And by the end of this investigation, I wanted one simple answer. Would I actually start a shopping cart cleaning company? Because here's the interesting thing, every supermarket has shopping carts. Some have a few dozen, others have several hundred. They're used by thousands of people every week. They're left outside in the rain, dragged through mud, covered in spilled drinks, food, dust, grease, and yet most of us never stop to think about what happens after we return them. Somebody has to keep them clean. The question is, who? At first, I assumed supermarket employees probably cleaned them, maybe once every few weeks, maybe whenever they looked dirty. It seemed logical, but after looking into it, I realized that's usually not what happens at all. Instead, many supermarkets hire specialized companies whose only job is cleaning shopping carts. An entire business built around something most people never even notice. The more I learned, the stranger it became. Because this wasn't just someone showing up with a pressure washer. This was specialized equipment, commercial contracts, dedicated routes, industrial cleaning systems, recurring customers. In other words, this wasn't just a cleaning service, it was a real business. But solving a real problem doesn't automatically make something a good business. A company can stay busy every single day and still lose money. So, before getting excited, I needed to answer the first question. Why would supermarkets even pay an outside company to clean shopping carts in the first place? Because if there isn't a real problem, there isn't a real business. And that's where the investigation really began. Before we can figure out whether this is a good business, we first need to answer a much simpler question. Is this actually a problem supermarkets are willing to pay to solve? Because that's where every successful business begins. Not with an idea, but with a problem. At first, I wasn't convinced. I mean, how dirty can a shopping cart really get? Sure, they sit outside all day. But does that justify hiring an entire company? The more I looked into it, the more I realized I had underestimated just how much abuse these carts go through. Think about it. Every single day, hundreds, sometimes thousands of people touch the same handles. Children sit inside them, food leaks, drinks spill, people wheel them through parking lots, mud, puddles, and even snow. They're left outside in the rain, then exposed to the sun, day after day, week after week. Multiply that by a supermarket with 300 shopping carts, and suddenly you're managing one of the most frequently touched objects in the entire store. That creates more than just dirt. It creates a customer experience problem. Imagine grabbing a shopping cart with sticky handles, mud on the wheels, rust around the basket, or an unpleasant smell. Before you've even entered the supermarket, you've already formed an opinion about the store. For supermarkets, appearance matters. Clean stores build trust. Dirty equipment does the opposite, but appearance isn't the only issue. Shopping carts are expensive. Depending on the model, a single shopping cart can cost anywhere from around $150 to well over $300. That means a supermarket with 300 carts could easily have between $45,000 and $90,000 invested in shopping carts alone. That's a surprisingly valuable asset sitting outside every day. And just like any expensive asset, it lasts longer if it's properly maintained. Regular cleaning removes dirt, road salt, grease, and debris that can damage moving parts over time. It also makes it easier to spot broken wheels, loose bolts, or damaged frames before they become bigger problems. In other words, cleaning isn't just about making the carts look nice. It's also part of protecting an expensive investment. So, by this point, it was clear the problem was real. But another question immediately came to mind. If supermarkets already have employees cleaning the store every day, why don't they just clean the shopping carts themselves? The answer comes down to something every business thinks about: time. A supermarket employee has dozens of responsibilities: restocking shelves, helping customers, running checkout lanes, cleaning floors, managing inventory. Stopping everything to wash hundreds of shopping carts simply isn't an efficient use of their time, especially when the entire fleet has to be cleaned consistently. That's why many supermarkets outsource the job. Instead of buying specialized equipment, hiring extra staff, training employees, and maintaining the machinery themselves, they simply hire a company that already specializes in it. The cleaning company arrives, cleans the entire fleet, leaves, and comes back again on a regular schedule. It's predictable, it's efficient, and from the supermarket's perspective, it's one less thing to worry about. At this point, I finally understood why these companies exist. The demand made sense. Supermarkets had a real problem, and these companies were solving it. But understanding why customers hire them is only half the story. Because the question I cared about most still hadn't been answered: how much are supermarkets actually paying for this service? Because if the contracts are too small, it doesn't matter how many shopping carts they clean, the business simply won't work. So, next, I started following the money. Now that I knew why supermarkets hire these companies, I wanted to answer the question that probably brought you here in the first place. How much money can a shopping cart cleaning company actually make? Because solving a real problem doesn't automatically make it a good business. The numbers have to make sense, so I started looking into how these companies actually get paid. At first, I assumed they charged per shopping cart. It seemed like the most logical pricing model. More carts, more money. But that's usually not how it works. Instead, most companies work through business-to-business service contracts. A supermarket hires them to clean its entire fleet on a recurring schedule. Depending on the agreement, that could be once a month, once every 2 months, or even every week for larger locations. That means the business isn't chasing new customers every single day. Instead, it's built around recurring revenue. And recurring revenue is one of the things I always like to see in a business. Because once a contract is signed, the company already knows a portion of next month's income before the work even begins. Then I started looking at pricing. While every contract is different, most estimates I found suggested a supermarket could pay anywhere between $500 and $1,200 for a single cleaning visit. Of course, that depends on several factors: how many shopping carts need cleaning, how dirty they are, how often the service is performed, and where the supermarket is located. So instead of assuming the highest number, let's stay conservative. Imagine one supermarket pays around $700 for complete cleaning. Now here's where things started getting interesting. What if a single truck could clean 2 supermarkets in one day? That's already $1,400 in daily revenue. But what if the route is efficient? The supermarkets are close together, and the crew manages to complete 3 locations? Now, we're talking about $2,100 in a single day. Push that to 4 supermarkets, and daily revenue climbs to roughly $2,800. Suddenly, this little cleaning business doesn't look so little anymore. Of course, revenue isn't profit. That number still has to pay for employees, fuel, cleaning chemicals, insurance, vehicle maintenance, equipment, marketing, and everything else required to keep the business running. But something had definitely changed. When I first started this investigation, I imagined someone driving around with a pressure washer. Now, I was looking at a business capable of generating thousands of dollars in revenue in a single day. That completely changed my perspective. Then another thought crossed my mind. If the revenue depends on how many supermarkets you can service, then the real question isn't how much does one contract pay? The real question is how many contracts can one crew realistically complete in a day? Because that's where this business is won or lost. Every extra supermarket completed means more revenue, without buying another truck, without opening another office, without finding another manager. Everything comes down to efficiency. So, before calculating whether this business is actually profitable, I needed to understand the operation itself. How long does it take to clean hundreds of shopping carts? What kind of equipment do these companies use? And how many supermarkets can one crew realistically handle before the day is over? Because that's the number that determines everything. At this point, I understood why supermarkets hire these companies, and I had a rough idea of how they make money. But there was still one piece missing. Could one crew actually clean enough supermarkets in a day to make those revenue numbers realistic? Because it's easy to make a business look profitable on paper. Reality is usually different. So I started looking into how these companies actually operate. And the first thing I discovered was that this isn't someone arriving with a pressure washer and a garden hose. Professional shopping cart cleaning companies use specialized machines built specifically for this job. When they arrive at a supermarket, the shopping carts are gathered into one long line. Then, one by one, they're pushed through the cleaning system. Inside the machine, the carts are sprayed with high-pressure water and specialized cleaning solutions designed to remove dirt, grease, food residue, and bacteria. Powerful rotating brushes scrub every side of the cart, including areas that would be difficult to clean by hand. After that, the carts are rinsed. Many systems also apply a sanitizing solution before the carts leave the machine. Some machines even use air blowers to remove excess water, so the carts can go back into service almost immediately. The entire process is designed for one thing: speed. Because in this business, time really is money. A crew isn't paid for how clean one shopping cart looks. They're paid for cleaning an entire supermarket's fleet as efficiently as possible. Depending on the equipment being used, these machines can clean dozens of shopping carts every hour. That means a supermarket with around 250 carts can often be completed in just a few hours. And that's when everything started to click. Earlier, we estimated that one supermarket might generate around $700 in revenue if a crew can finish that location in roughly 2 to 3 hours. That leaves enough time to move on to another supermarket, possibly even a third. Suddenly, those daily revenue estimates didn't seem unrealistic anymore. But efficiency isn't just about the cleaning machine. Planning the route is just as important. Imagine driving 45 minutes between every supermarket. A huge part of the day would be spent sitting behind the wheel instead of generating revenue. That's why successful companies try to group their customers into the same geographic area. Less driving, more cleaning, more revenue from the same truck. It's a simple idea, but it has a massive impact on profitability. The more I looked into it, the more I realized this wasn't really a cleaning business. It was an operations business. Every decision affects profit: the route, the equipment, the crew, the schedule. Even arriving 30 minutes late can throw off the rest of the day. Companies that operate efficiently can clean more supermarkets without increasing their biggest costs. Companies that don't end up spending more time driving than earning. By now, I finally understood how this business worked. I understood why supermarkets outsourced the service. I understood how companies generated recurring revenue. And I understood how efficiency determined whether those revenue numbers were actually achievable. But there was still one question left. How much money is actually left after paying for the truck, the equipment, the employees, the fuel, the insurance, and everything else? Because revenue sounds impressive. Profit is what really matters. At this point, we finally had enough information to start answering the question that matters most. Does this business actually make money? Because revenue is exciting. Profit is reality. So, let's build this business from the ground up. The biggest investment is the equipment. A professional shopping cart cleaning machine can cost anywhere from $50,000 to well over $100,000, depending on the model and features. Then, you'll need a truck capable of transporting that equipment from supermarket to supermarket. Depending on whether you buy new or used, that could easily add another $30,000 to $60,000. Already, you're looking at a significant upfront investment. But the expenses don't stop there. You'll also need insurance, fuel, cleaning chemicals, equipment maintenance, vehicle maintenance, marketing, office expenses. And unless you're doing every job yourself, employee wages. These costs continue every month whether you're cleaning shopping carts or not. So the business needs enough contracts just to stay alive. Let's go back to the numbers we estimated earlier. Suppose the average supermarket pays around $700 every time its shopping carts are cleaned. Now, imagine your company services 3 supermarkets a day. That's approximately $2,100 in daily revenue. Over a standard 5-day work week, that's around $10,500. Multiply that across an entire year, and you're looking at well over $500,000 in annual revenue before expenses. Now, before anyone gets too excited, that is not profit. Out of that revenue, you still have to pay every operating cost we just talked about. But this is exactly why I wanted to investigate this business. When most people hear shopping cart cleaning company, they imagine a small side hustle. The numbers tell a different story. This can become a legitimate business with recurring commercial clients and predictable income. Of course, everything depends on keeping your trucks busy. A cleaning machine sitting in a warehouse doesn't generate money. A truck parked in the parking lot doesn't generate money. Every hour your equipment isn't working, you're still paying for it. That's why utilization is one of the biggest factors in this business. The more supermarkets you can service using the same truck and the same crew, the lower your cost per job becomes. And that's where experience starts to matter. Companies with efficient routes, long-term contracts, and a full schedule can spread their fixed costs across hundreds of cleaning visits every year. New companies don't have that advantage. They still have the same equipment payments, the same insurance, the same truck, but far fewer customers. Which means the first challenge isn't cleaning shopping carts, it's selling the service. Because before you can earn recurring revenue, you first have to convince supermarkets to trust you with the contract. And in a business where contracts can last for years, winning that first customer might actually be the hardest part of all. By now, I had a much clearer picture of the business. I knew how companies generated revenue, I knew where the biggest costs came from, and I understood what separated profitable operators from struggling ones. There was only one question left to answer. After everything I'd learned, would I actually start a shopping cart cleaning company? So, after spending days researching this business, reading industry reports, looking at equipment, estimating revenues, breaking down the costs, and understanding how these companies actually operate. There's only one question left. Would I actually start a shopping cart cleaning company? Surprisingly, my answer isn't a simple yes or no. Like every business, it has strengths and it has weaknesses. Let's start with what I like. The biggest advantage is that this is a business to business service. You're not relying on thousands of individual customers walking through the door every day. Instead, you build relationships with supermarkets. Once a contract is signed, you know exactly when the next job is coming. That creates recurring revenue. And recurring revenue makes a business far more predictable. I also like that the service solves a real problem. This isn't a trendy product that could disappear next year. Supermarkets will always have shopping carts, and as long as they have shopping carts, someone has to maintain them. Another advantage is scalability. You don't necessarily increase your profits by charging more. You increase them by improving efficiency, better routes, more contracts in the same area, less driving, more cleaning, higher utilization of the same equipment. That's a business model I like. But there are also several challenges. The first is the startup investment. Buying specialized equipment and a truck isn't cheap. This isn't the kind of business you start with a few $100s. You're committing a significant amount of capital before earning your first dollar. The second challenge is sales. Cleaning shopping carts isn't the difficult part. Winning supermarket contracts is. Large retailers don't switch service providers overnight. They want reliability, experience, insurance, references. That means building trust could take months or even years. There's also operational risk. If your truck breaks down, the work stops. If the cleaning machine needs major repairs, the work stops. Unlike a digital business, this company depends entirely on physical equipment showing up every day. And finally, there's competition. You're not the first person to discover this opportunity. Many regions already have established companies with long-term contracts and existing relationships. Breaking into that market won't be easy. So, would I recommend this business? If you're looking for a low-cost side hustle, probably not. The investment is simply too high. But if you're interested in building a commercial service business, don't mind selling to other businesses, and you're comfortable managing operations, I actually think this is a far more interesting opportunity than most people realize. Not because it will make you rich overnight, but because it's built on something every successful business needs: a real problem, a paying customer, and recurring demand. And that's probably the biggest lesson I learned from this investigation. When I started, I thought I was researching a company that cleaned shopping carts. By the end, I realized I was really looking at a logistics business disguised as a cleaning company. It's another reminder that profitable businesses are often hiding in places most people never think to look. Most of us walk past shopping carts every week without giving them a second thought. Now, the next time you see a row of freshly cleaned carts outside a supermarket, you'll know there might be an entire business behind them. A business most people don't even know exists. And maybe, just maybe, your next business idea isn't something revolutionary. Maybe it's something ordinary that almost everyone else has overlooked. I'll see you in episode 2.